there is some news that our listeners might have missed. We're taking actually a little bit of a different direction today. This was an editorial written by Ishita Mehta, who's a business strategist, C-suite advisor, advocate for women executives, and currently a marketing leader at HelloFresh.
Wonderful.
She wrote this in Forbes. Here's the headline: Rethinking Marketing Leadership, Why Every High-Growth CMO Needs a Chief of Staff. Ishita begins her editorial. Modern CMOs constantly navigate an extremely complex landscape. They are expected to be artists excelling at brand building and scientists unlocking performance through data. They manage global go-to-market strategies and align diverse teams spanning product, growth, brand, analytics, and regional operations. It's no wonder, then, that CMOs are stretched thin. In fact, according to research from Gartner, without agreement on business priorities, CMOs create strategic plans that look more like to-do lists with high-level business goals and a variety of marketing tactics with no clear connection between them. However, there may be a solution in the form of an emerging role on the marketing team: the Chief of Staff. Mehta writes, a proficient Chief of Staff acts as the CMO's strategic partner, overseeing planning cycles, operational rhythms, and cross-functional execution. During her career, Mehta says that she has learned that balancing strategic vision with execution is a rare skill and extremely difficult to hone. The CMO's Chief of Staff. What do you think, Mike?
I immediately love this idea. One thing that hasn't actually come up in the pod yet, but we will absolutely get there, is that with, as Ishita mentions, so many things to balance, so many plates spinning, that a lot of chief marketing officers, especially when you're getting to the big and more complex organizations out there, they're starting to look more like a chief administrative officer. You know what I mean? You have honed your skills as a marketer, as a leader. You have gotten to the top of one of the biggest organizations on earth, and you are managing agency contracts and haggling with vendors and making sure that the org is talking to each other and proving your need to exist to the C-suite. That's a where do you get the time in the day to market your product, service, and brand? So I love this. I love that, some key responsibilities being handed off to somebody who is in a very trusted, very important, I'm sure we'll get there in this conversation. That just feels like allowing the marketer to get back to doing what they are obviously elite level at. They became a CMO for a reason.
Yeah, it's funny too. You don't ever hear any of the other executives in the C-suite having to deal with these things, right?
No, the CFO never gets too busy to deal with the company's finances.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's just not a thing that happens. So I love this, but obviously the CMO can't just be like, okay, you're taking care of everything. I'm going to go back into the branding room and brainstorm a little bit. So do they have any guidance for where the focus areas could be in transferring a little bit of that responsibility down one rung of the ladder?
Yeah, Ishita actually named a few. So there was strategy. She said a chief of staff can distill the CMO's vision into clear direction, ensuring alignment across brands, performance, and teams. She noted planning. The chief of staff can orchestrate the right cadences to ensure progress is tracked and reviewed, managing objectives and key results, weekly and quarterly business reviews, budgeting processes, etc. And also operations. Chief of staff can develop and refine systems as well as reporting accountability structures. They also tackle process and governance and ensure the infrastructure to enable decision-making is built and ready to function.
This is just I can see it in my mind's eye, and that's where that's a very special place to fill. And I would just say to CMOs, don't fall into the same mistake of getting your brightest marketer at the top of your team and just deciding that they should be chief of staff. Maybe they should. Maybe they're the systems thinker, the organizationalist. Maybe they're the person who loves to see everything in order and method. But if they're not, if they're the wildfire who really gets everybody excited, you can't think of this as second highest marketer. This is a very specific job.
That's a really good observation. I hadn't thought about that. This is much more like a project manager type, a project manager on steroids, right? Not just traditional.
Where the organization's the project.
Yes, exactly. And that is a skill that's beyond the marketing set. So if you have someone who's an amazing marketer, they may not be the right person for this. You want to keep them just like as with the CMO, focusing on the things that they should be focused on so that the administration, all these other details can kind of be hammered out by this chief of staff. So yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, and I just love giving your highest ranking marketer some space for strategic thinking.
Yeah.
If they're seeing all of this stuff and don't need to worry about the blocking and tackling, you're going to get some big ideas that exist up here and can provide value at this level.
Right.
I'm putting my hands to the
Yes.
top of the frame for you guys still listening. The cup still looks beautiful, by the way. But yeah, so that is very cool. It's a spot, and you know what?
Yes.
It's really funny that we're having this conversation today.
I thought the
Ryan.
same thing.
You want to share with our listeners why I
Yes,
have a little
well,
bit of chuckle right now?
In fact, our guest Lou Aversano has his own chief of staff, Matthew Connolly, who he brought to the shoot.
Yep.
We got to meet Matthew, see the whole thing in action.
Absolutely. Big shout out to Matthew. And since Matthew was taking care of all of the logistics and making sure they were in the right place with the questions ahead of time and all that stuff, Lou only had to focus on being a brilliant guest, which, spoiler alert, he was.
Yes.